find the thing that scares you, like really terrifies you, and use it. Hey YouTube! So today I was supposed to be just editing videos tonight instead of actually filming one, but I felt sadly compelled to do a shadow work video because this is the time to do it. Everyone's into them right now, and it just feels kind of wrong if I don't. And I have a deep passion for the shadow work stuff. I've only been on, grab a drink with me, because it gets better when there's a drink sometimes. But I've only been on my witchy path, or claimed the word witch, I guess you could say, for about 3 months now. But I've been doing shadow work for quite a bit of time. Even if I didn't realize that there was an actual word for what I was doing, that was definitely part of it. I really was into guided meditations when I was younger. That was a big thing, and I'm really into being a writer and a comic artist, creating my own worlds. I have this whole world that's in my head that I guess you would call it like an astral groundworking place, I guess, because it can be very positive, very safety building, and I've just recently have discovered the underworld side of it, I guess, that is very, very interesting to me. But a lot of my shadow work began because of dreams that I had had. It was a reoccurring dream. It was really, really terrifying. But it basically happens where I'm either in some house, whether it was my house, any house, a friend's house, and it always started where everything's normal, everything's fine, it's dark, and I look out the window and there's this man there with like really, like his eyes are like wide, like just staring at me with like this weird creepy grin on his face. And he'd always be like right outside the window, and it would freak me out. And first I ignore it or whatever, and eventually I get so scared is that I go run and hide somewhere. And at some point I can hear him killing everyone else in the house. And like, even though I haven't ever seen anybody else in the house or done anything with it, like I knew my loved ones were there. Like it was like that feeling in your head. You're like, someone I care about is somewhere in this house, and I can hear them getting killed. But in the dream, you get that frozen, that terror where you just can't move, like that type of feeling in a dream. That dream reoccurred several times, over and over and over and over again, until finally I decided to. There's a dream where my neighbor had just given birth to a beautiful little baby girl, and I was babysitting her on the regular. And suddenly I had that dream again a few nights after the baby was born, and I was in the neighbor's house, and my first instinct was to run in the dream, and I ran, and I knew he was in the house, and I suddenly realized that the only other person in the house with me, because in the dream I guess I was also babysitting, was the baby, and that's who was happening. And it was the first time I was like, no, that person's helpless, I have to help them. Even though there have been other, like, people who are younger than me, or, like, someone I would have considered a child back then, even though I was definitely a child still in the dreams, it was the first time where I felt I switched from victim that couldn't do anything in the dream set to, like, I could protect somebody. And that really helped to, I don't know, I faced the person down and I chased them out of the house. And later, when I got way older and I started in college, and someone had brought up the term shadow work and guided meditations and confronting parts of yourself that you don't like, or not even don't like, but you realize that there are some negative aspects of your personality that are hindering you, constantly getting in your own way type of deal. So I decided to do this guided meditation, and even though I hadn't thought of those reoccurring dreams for God knows how long, apparently he is the thing that pops up in my head as the crazy man staring at me out the window. And through my shadow work and really reoccurring and going back to it and realizing what it was, I realized that that person in my dreams is now become representative or holding space for something that is parts of my personality that I dislike, parts of my personality that I hated at one time, and parts of my personality that I really had to come to terms with and basically embrace in a way until it was like, it's okay that you're like this. It's okay, and not in a like, it's okay if I treat people bad sense, but loving myself regardless of those things. And so I did a lot of guided meditations where I was back in those houses. A lot of times I would fight him off. I eventually gave him a name, Jeffrey. I don't know why. Jeffrey was the first thing that ever came to mind, and no, his name is forever Jeffrey. And it was very interesting how I've dealt with a lot of, it made me face a lot of my anger issues, a lot of my desperation, a lot of times to be alone. I think honestly that was the ultimate reason why he was coming into the house and murdering everyone in it, because even though that was a terrifying thought to me, when I look back on the dreams, I realize that there was like this 5 seconds where everything goes quiet, and I feel like, oh, like it's done, it's over. And I don't have to worry about what's happening else around me. And I realized that was a marker for you're not having enough alone time, and this is a weird ass way that you're going, well, if I can't ask for it, then maybe I can demand it with violence. And it's like, no, that's not acceptable either. Even more so, it was also confronting my cowardice. I do it a lot where there's sometimes where I explode, where I take the position of Jeffrey. But more often than not, I'm not doing that at all. I do the opposite. I am the girl that I was in those dreams. I run away. I hide. When something I dislike is happening, even if it is semi-necessary to gain the thing that I want to happen, I still run from it. I never confront it. I never look at those parts of myself that I really cannot handle or want to take in. So I did another thing, which is pretty awesome, because throughout a lot of this meditations that I've done when I was younger, right out of college, I decided, well, hell, I've decided that, well, hell, if I have this place in my head, which I go to in these guided meditations to help me figure out things I'm doing in my life, or on the, I don't know, I guess the sunny side, the light side of my mental health and abilities and everything like that, then why don't I have a place for the shadow self, or a place where I could go and meet these aspects of my personality. Basically, I asked myself, if Jeffrey was a real person in my astral head, where would he be? I realized he was nowhere near any of the places I explored yet. It was really interesting too. Anyone else who has done this, who's made like a meditation, there are times where you hit walls where, I don't know, at least for me, it was like I hit a place I just couldn't get past. In my head, it was very much, I always had to go right. I couldn't ever go left. Like I was always walking towards this direction. There's a town in this direction, and I could curve up this way for a little bit. There's like a field and other characters and other aspects, I guess, of my personality I would meet. Past lives, different things. God only knows how many different meditations I did in that area. And suddenly, the minute I decided to see the shadow side of things, I felt the world flip in a way. It was like someone just took like the board. It was, if the world is flat, then the world just went foop. And suddenly I could go left. Or I guess to you guys it'd be right. Either way. This way. I could go this way finally. And there were things to explore over there. So that's kind of how I am with shadow work at the moment. I am fighting a lot of... I really find it useful to have a personification. That character in my dream, this crazy man, Jeffrey, that I see out the windows. He is basically, whenever I really want to look seriously at myself, I do a meditation with him. We sit down, we have tea a lot. We sit down and talk on a regular basis. I used to fight him off. I then went this whole, like, I'm accepting you no matter what, nothing you do is actually wrong, and that was twisted in its own weird way. There are a lot of different things that I've done with him, and he is the shadow part, I guess, to my animus. He is that shadow aspect of the male side of my personality, I guess, or my male energies. Helpful. There's something about where, and I guess it's because I'm a writer and an artist and those things, if you take a part of your building this character around my shadow self, really has helped me to look at him and not detach him from myself in any way, but a little bit it was like that at first, where I could detach him enough to look at him. But now it's also realizing that he is, of course, me. It's not like Jeffrey's doing all this. It's not my fault. It's still your fault, Samantha. But it really helps in those guided meditations to sit down and have a personified figure that I'm talking to in depth with different aspects, and I can ask questions and get answers that I wouldn't have naturally thought of. I feel like if I wasn't in a headspace to really address that side of my personality. And having a sort of an entire realm, too, in my, I guess, astral place that I go, my meditative state, really helped as well. Having an entire place that in my head is my underworld. And my matron really was the one that brought me down there. I was doing this deep guided thing with Persephone, and that's when I felt the world flip. It's because she was like, you need to come down here. You need to address some shit that's hiding. Need to address this now. It was really interesting. In that time, I have now sat down, like I said before, had tea with Jeffrey. I have also, I built him a house. It was like a whole thing in one giant meditation where I felt very, like I actually hadn't given him a proper place to be. Or a proper, like I kept saying I accepted him as part of myself, but had I really given him a permanent place to exist? Like I had other aspects of my personality within this, my being that I had created, and I hadn't. So I built him a little house, and that's where he lives now, in the underworld, and that's where he is, and it was funny how once I had done that and come out of it and really thought back and journaled about that entire experience, how more at ease I was with the decisions I was making. That it was okay that if I sometimes appeared like the bad guy for some people, or that sometimes there's going to be a negative thing I'm going to have to fight through, really, and that is really okay. It's not taking the negativity and folding it into something wonderful or getting out of it as quick as possible. A lot of times it's realizing the negative thing I'm going through or that negative aspect of myself and going, okay, that's a part of me. I accept it. But if I want to advance in a human being, what are the steps I have to take? And even if they're uncomfortable as hell and I'm never going to like doing them for the rest of my life, it's still something that I need to address to advance forward. And I find this really, really helpful. So I would encourage everybody else. Does anyone else have this where they have, like, if they've done shadow work before, they have a personified thing or person, animal, spirit, something that they, like, talk to just to help get it going? And I find it really interesting that it was, of course, a nightmare that recurred as a child that eventually I went back to. And it is really interesting to look at why that nightmare has happened. I have journaled about it so many freaking times about, like, why in the world am I envisioning my entire family being murdered over and over and over and over again. I think sometimes some spirit guides throughout my life have been coming in and they have to, like, hit me over the freaking head with something in a very extreme manner just for me to take notice of it. Because I have weird, weird dreams all the time, but if they get too weird, too complex, or too quote-unquote mundane, or something that I wouldn't really take notice of, I ignore it entirely. But those have stuck with me for a very long time, and I think it was because of my natural affinity to ignore what they were telling me. A lot of it is, you need your quiet time, violent, and that's nothing wrong with that, but violence is not the answer, and you need to face your fucking shit. You have to come and face the things that are getting in your way. You can't run and hide from them because there is something eventually that is going to be so important to you that if you lose it, it is scarier to lose that thing than it is to lose all the other things that you think you love or you really do hold high. I think that's also another thing to consider when dealing with your shadow self, because for a long time I felt a lot of guilt with the idea that I was basically using this dream that I had murdered, my family was murdered, everyone I knew and loved was murdered in front of me. But that guilt isn't really something to focus on because I feel like in the astral world, in the dream world, it is all just a dream. Like, we all do the really weird things that, like, I've had sex with people in my dream where I'm like, I've never even met you and I don't know why that would even happen. Or I have come into contact with all these weird things and using that aspect to then latch on to something just because it was something I remembered so vividly, and really did haunt me for a long time. I still, to this day, if I'm, like, in the suburbs and there's a whole bunch of, like, trees out there, I have to remind myself that you're not going to see anyone outside the window. Like, no one's going to come in your house and murder everybody. It's fine. You're fine. The doors are all locked. You're fine. And it's all from that dream. It's not from any weird situation that occurred to me actually in my life. Yeah, I would really encourage, like, to find the thing that scares you, like, really terrifies you, and use it. Because there was something just so palpable about it. I couldn't get that dream out of my head for literally over 10 years. It was just always there, always there. And then suddenly, the minute I faced it and realized to my analyzation what I believe it was really about, which was multi-layered, it really, really, I can't, like, it just breached open a whole part of my psyche. I honestly feel a lot of times that when there's something in your head, because we all have wild dreams all the time, but when you have a dream like that is reoccurring, that is happening again, that you can't get out of your head 5, 10 years later, 2 years later, a year later, if it takes more than, like, that morning to kind of forget about it, and it's nicking at you for some reason, there's something there that, even if your subconscious mind was just playing, or you were in another realm, or something weird was happening, that is the reason it's ringing true to you and you can't forget it is because there's something that applies to your current life. And I think that's what made it so. I realized that and I could envelop and create an entire character around this nightmare figure and branch off from that. And I feel like when I really, really addressed some things from that, when I really like sat down and had a real conversation with Jeffrey, I have those are the major jumps in my personality. Those are when I noticed, for me, who knows if anyone else notices it, family, friends, lovers, etc., so forth, but I notice it the most when I'm like, it feels like another piece of the puzzle has just like fallen into place, or I feel like some other part of me where I'm like, oh yeah, that adds nicely to the collage that is Sam that I am building. I finally got through that part that I couldn't figure out how this is going to mesh, and now like, oh, that mesh, that works. There's a completion there that I did not realize I even wanted or needed or could achieve until I really faced through and got to some of that little nitty minor things that really weren't all that minor. And it really, 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 I can't say it enough. If you're thinking that you're like, oh, I don't know where to start or whatever, start with that. So pick a nightmare character. Write it out. Why are they a nightmare to you? What is wrong with them in your head? What is so bad about the experience that they gave you? What is it? And really confront it. Really think about all aspects of the situation, because I had to realize that I was taking both status of Jeffrey with a lot of my anger, but it was clear that part of me almost wondered if something drastic was not what was needed to really get what I wanted. And I had to face that part of myself. I had to realize I was taking the place of Jeffrey, and I was also the girl running. I was both. I was both the person who was confronting too way far, and also the person who was running the fuck away. Like, it was 0 to 60 for me. I either confronted you so horribly and would lash out in a way that was almost cruel, as opposed to every other aspect or every other time I was running, I was hiding. I was so far gone, the minute something bad happened, you would never see me again. And that, I think, analyzing all sides of these dreams and like sitting down and kind of like talking with the antagonist or the bad guy of these dreams, making a friend of him, inviting him in, loving him, really helped to focus on why he was so important to me, why he struck such a chord. It's kind of the start of my shadow work journey. It is still ongoing. Jeffrey's house is still there. It is built. It is beautiful. And I revisit on a natural, everyday, not every day, more of like a once a month. I try to check in on a constant basis, shadow work wise. It's one of the things that I really think that a lot of people don't do, where they don't check in mental health, witchy, spiritually, shadow worky, all the things. You should have a check-in with yourself on a regular basis and be working towards things all the time. Not just when things are bad, not just when you realize you've hit a wall, but all the time. When you have a moment, when you feel the inkling, when you're like, hey, that seems like a good idea, jump into it, do it. Why not? I think if you don't, then that's when you hit more walls. If you don't do it every day or on a regular basis, it gets pushed aside with the rest of life that's happening, whether it's the rest of the witchy things or the future or mundane life that gets in the way. Focusing on the things that really matter at times, even the dirty things, or the gritty, the dark, the shadowy. And knowing that it's not all, like, it's not supposed to be this grim, awful, horrible thing. There was a lot of shit I had to confront about myself, my feelings towards other people, and everything else going on, but like, I really love my shadow self now. I realize there's a lot of aspects that if I had been rejecting constantly, that I would not love myself more. Like, Jeffrey needs his fucking alone time. I need my fucking alone time. And I have to accept that about myself. And if you can't accept that about me, then we're not going to get along. And I've learned to know that that's okay because of that shadow work. Jeffrey's also, for me, a protection level, I guess. He's there when I feel like I'm losing control. I've somehow trained myself to kind of like, he just kind of pops up in my head like, we could go this route, and like, it's like the perfect check and balance system. I'm like, whoa, no, we don't need you right now. But it's like I got my own little backup. It's my shadow self. My shadow self is my backup that's back here going like, we could go full crazy if you wanted to. Like, we could do that. And I'm like, no, why? No, that causes more problems. Sit down. But it does. It feels like someone's come to my corner. It feels like even if I'm just showing up for me That's all that is a voice in my head is popping up because it's me telling me, hey, we could take them out if we needed to. Like, we don't need this. And then it's me also talking to me going, no, calm down, take a minute. We don't need to go that far. Just because you're not getting what you want right now does not mean that needs to happen. And that's nice. I think that's what's really awesome is I think if you get to a good point in shadow work and continue to push forward with it and realize it's an ongoing nitty-gritty dive back in over and over and again process, is that you're showing up for you. And in turn, your shadow self will show up for you when you need them. At least that's what my experience has been. Let me know in the comments what your shadow work business has been. Do you personify? Is there a person that you go back and talk to all the time? Do you agree or disagree with any of the things I've kind of stated? Do you have weird, creepy dreams that you've associated and used that in your shadow work to be as kind of like a jumping off point of a level of something you can go, okay, I'm going to dive into this and peel it apart like I would a British novel because I had to in school, that type of thing. So yeah, this is part of my Utober series, so new videos every day, guys. We're getting pretty close to the end, though, which is kind of awesome. I still cannot believe I've filmed this many videos in a row, but that means I am accomplishing my October goal, which is huge. So if you've been liking any of this, please comment down below, like and subscribe, all of those fun things, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.